Hello everybody, here we are today and we have a little bit of a weird video, and I'm not even sure what I'm going to put as the title, but basically talking about how certain teams do in situations where they are trailing, leading, or tied, and what all that entails at all strength. So anyway, before we start, please make sure to subscribe if you're new to me or hockey, whatever the case may be. That being said, let's get on into it. So I'm probably going to have this be a video where I end up putting something on the screen when I talk about these numbers, because I'm not going to remember these numbers off the top of my head, but talking about how these top 5 and bottom 5 teams do in these situations. So we're going to kick it off with teams with the highest goals for per 60 while leading. So in terms of the top 5 teams when they are leading with the highest goals for per 60, you have the Anaheim Ducks at 3.81, the Vancouver Canucks at 3.82, the Dallas Stars at 3.90, the Edmonton Oilers at 3.92, and the Buffalo Sabres at 3.95. Now, what does it entail really? It just means that when these teams are able to get a lead, they're probably going to continue to press their advantage offensively. Anaheim is kind of a weird team, which we'll get to in a minute here, but you're looking at teams like Edmonton and Vancouver that you would expect to be on this list. Buffalo, kind of an interesting situation there too, because again, last year they finished 3rd in goals in the NHL last year and are the best team at pouring it on offensively when they have the lead. Now we have the highest goals against per 60 while the teams are leading. What does this mean? It means that when these teams have the lead, they really struggle to keep the puck out of the back end of their net. So we have in 5th place the Calgary Flames at 3.93 goals allowed per 60, Anaheim Ducks at 3.95, which again we'll talk about here in a minute, the Chicago Blackhawks at 4.05, the Columbus Blue Jackets at 4.16, and the Montreal Canadiens at 4.18. Do any of those teams particularly stick out to me? I think that I'm not totally surprised that Montreal, Columbus, and Chicago are in that mix there, because again, they're teams that maybe aren't a playoff favorite. Certainly not Columbus and Chicago. Montreal, kind of a weird situation there. But the two teams that surprised me the most are Calgary and the Ducks. So Calgary, a team that is known for having a good defensive system, or at least they are a team that in recent years has had good defensive play and not a lot of goals compared to other teams some years. And Anaheim, this is so weird to be able to say when they have a lead, their offense is electric, but at the same time to say that they just cannot stop allowing goals. So I guess in the Ducks case, they are a club that it's just chaotic. It's a mess. When they have a lead, you know that a lot of goals are probably going to be scored. Maybe not all the time, because again, these have different kind of criteria for them, and it is something that is situation based. But certainly interesting to see that the Ducks are in the top 5 for goals for and goals against. Now we have the highest goals for per 60 when teams are trailing, basically meaning that these are the teams that by goals for per 60 have a good chance of catching up. So now in 5th place we have the Toronto Maple Leafs at 3.81, the New York Islanders at 3.95, the New Jersey Devils at 3.98, and the Boston Bruins at 4.52 in the top spot, with Winnipeg at 4.53. I would say Winnipeg shocked me a little bit here. Some of these other teams I'm not as shocked by. Seeing a team like Boston, seeing a team like Toronto is something that doesn't totally surprise me. I guess seeing a team like the Islanders does shock me a little bit as well, but I recently did a video talking about the Islanders are able to score at a higher rate than they were last year, so that is interesting. And it's kind of fun to see a team like Winnipeg, where they are having a really good year compared to what we expected them from, being able to claw their way back into it in terms of offensive capabilities while they're trailing. Now we have teams that have the highest goals against per 60 while trailing, basically just meaning that when these teams are down, they have a good chance of just getting outright buried. So in 5th, you have the Montreal Canadiens at 3.73, the New York Rangers at 3.74, there's a shocker, the St. Louis Blues at 3.90, the Ottawa Senators at 3.91, and the San Jose Sharks at 4.72. Now, I do want to say, again, with this being situational, I would probably point out the fact that the Sharks losing those big games to the Canucks and the Penguins would probably mean that this is why they are so much bigger in terms of goals against per 60 compared to all the other teams cracking that 4-goal mark. So if you take that out, maybe they're not even in the top spot. However, this is a team that is a bottom feeder at the moment. The Senators are as well, and it's just one of those deals where bad things happen, and they continue to happen for some of these clubs. I'm sure if you said that to a Senators fan and a Sharks fan, they'd say, with the way we felt about the season, yeah, that kind of makes sense. When we are trailing, teams continue to pour it on. The Rangers one does surprise me a little bit, though, because, again, they're in a situation where they very well could win the Metro this year. But hey, just something to keep an eye out for. Then when we see the highest goals for per 60 of when teams are tied, meaning that when the score is even, they are likely to score more goals, maybe to take the lead. You have in 5th place the Tampa Bay Lightning with goals for per 60 of 3.52, the New York Rangers at 3.64, the Vancouver Canucks at 3.69, the Ottawa Senators at 4.01, and the Edmonton Oilers at 4.05. Looking at that list, again, New York is on there, Edmonton's on there, and Ottawa's on there. This is why it's fun to look at these and just see what situation you could be looking at here. And I will say, with some of these teams like Edmonton and Vancouver, I would probably expect that they're scoring a lot of goals, because in general they've been able to score a lot of goals. However, a team like Ottawa, it is kind of fun to say that when they have a situation where they're tied, they're able to score a lot of goals. Now, looking at their goals against, it is a lot higher compared to the Rangers. But in the grand scheme of things, we're looking at their offense when they are tied. And then when the score is tied, looking at the highest goals against per 60, basically meaning that when the game is even, these teams struggle to keep it where it's at. You have in 5th place the Detroit Red Wings, the Columbus Blue Jackets at 3.4, the Red Wings at 3.48, the New Jersey Devils at 3.52, the Chicago Blackhawks at 3.57, and the Tampa Bay Lightning at 4.26. So the Lightning are a team that is the Anaheim Ducks, if you will, in terms of them being just a lot of goals for and a lot of goals against when things are tied, whereas Anaheim, that situation where we talked about earlier, it's chaotic, it's messy, you're not really sure what's going to happen here, as my dog lets out a big snort. But yeah, you have other teams in here in the mix, like Chicago, that again, I probably wouldn't have been surprised by that so much. Other teams looking at this, the Red Wings, I will say that is a little unfortunate for them. But I do know that with how their season started off, especially games that they won, they would just basically bury a team in the first or the second, and then they wouldn't have to worry about it. So closer games, maybe they just had fewer of those, and so that's why the numbers are a little bit weirder, because again, I think with some of these numbers, it is a little bit more situational, because like I said, with the San Jose situation, they're probably still bottom 5 in goals against per 60 while trailing, but those those Canucks and Penguins games really did throw those numbers out of whack, if I had to assume. So that's all for this video, talking about these certain situations. If you guys liked it, I probably will do stuff over the PK, over the power play, stuff like that, and maybe do like goals for percentage to see what teams are in a great spot when they are leading, trailing, and tied, and all that stuff. Just kind of wanted to do this video because I was curious myself, and like I said, there was a couple of teams like Anaheim and Tampa Bay that surprised me a bit. So what are your thoughts on all that? Let me know down below in the comments. Also, please make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new. Everybody stay safe. Have a great night. And you go love hockey, alright. Goodbye, Brigadiers and Brigadettes. This is your captain signing off. Have a great night.